Greetings and happy pre-Super Bowl by 2 weeks. Brian Houston and Ryan Peterson. It's Bryan and Ryan. Thanks very much for tuning in today. And Mr. Peterson, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing good. We saw a couple of pretty interesting championship games yesterday. I thought the NFC championship game was a classic. I thought that the AFC championship game just shows how good the defending Super Bowl champions are. Let's
Yeah.
start with the NFC championship game and the fact that Tom Brady is going to his 10th Super Bowl. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's amazing. I will say though, I don't feel like they're going because of Brady. Brady threw 3 interceptions yesterday, and he really didn't play that well. I think he's just on a better team. I think this is the most talented team he's had. I don't want to say ever, but it's the most talented team he's been on in many years. And that defense was getting a lot of pressure on Rodgers. He took a lot of sacks that he doesn't normally take. And that game, though, just bizarre. I didn't have any dog in the fight in that game, and I was screaming at the TV when Green Bay kicked a field goal with 2:08 to go, down 8 with Aaron Rodgers, and they kicked a field goal. Brian, I think it's one of the most cowardly coaching decisions I have ever seen. In fact, I am no longer a Matt LaFleur fan on that decision alone. I think it was one of the worst decisions I've ever seen. And obviously the interference penalty, cost them. They couldn't get the ball back. But I do not understand how you're down 8 and you have Aaron Rodgers, and I mean, you're inside the 10-yard line and you kick a field goal. I don't get it. I'll never understand it.
I understand the probability was probably pretty low that they were going to convert that touchdown, because I think it was what you said, it was on the 8-yard line, right?
It was 4th and 8. They still could have
Yeah,
got a
4th and 8.
first down, I believe.
Okay.
But my thing is, are you better off
Oh,
getting 8 yards from Aaron Rodgers, or do you think with 2 minutes left you're going to get the ball back from Tom Brady? And I think we all knew they weren't going to get the ball
no.
back once they kicked off.
I do agree with you on that. I will take issue. I understand that Brady threw 3 picks yesterday. I think some of that has to do with the fact that for the first time in his life, he's got huge receivers that can go up and get balls, so he'll throw 50-50 balls that he probably wouldn't throw had he still been with the Patriots, where the deepest they could get was 10 yards. You know what I'm saying?
The Edelman crossing routes.
Right. So I think that he was 20 out of 36, 286. He threw 3 touchdowns. The biggest was the touchdown he threw with 1 second to go in the first half. I mean, that to me, that changed the entire tone of that ball game. So Brady didn't play great, but I definitely believe he had a major hand in them getting to the Super Bowl, because that one play put the first nail in the coffin.
And that also to me showed one coach went for it on 4th down at the 45 because he knew he had Tom Brady. He got it, and then they went for the jugular. The defense was just, what are they doing? But the dime that Brady threw to Scotty Miller, you're right, that was the turning point of the game, because what I take from that game is Bruce Arians trusted his quarterback and went for the jugular, and Matt LaFleur was a coward and kicked the field goal. And it was cowardly because you weren't getting the ball back. I don't understand what planet he's living on as an NFL head coach that you don't realize that Tom Brady is on the other side. Like, that's the thing. It's just like, yes, I got mad at the Bills. They're kicking field goals against Mahomes. I'm like, do you realize who you're playing? You cannot kick field goals. Analytics have become bigger and bigger. And I'm not always down with analytics, but there comes a point you have to know who you're playing, and you cannot kick field goals and win those games. And I think the combination of Brady with a coach that is aggressive has obviously proven to be a great combination. And I don't mean to discredit. Look, what Brady's done is unbelievable. He's won as many NFC championships now as Aaron Rodgers, who has spent his whole career in the NFC. But it was not Brady's best game. He had 3 costly interceptions, and Green Bay didn't make them pay, or I think the Packers would have won that game. But still amazing that Tom Brady's been is going to start his 10th Super Bowl. My hero, John Elway, is second with 5.
Yeah.
So he's doubled the next guy. Now, Patrick Mahomes may change that before it's all said and done, but pretty remarkable.
A couple of things. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for one thing. We talk about Matt LaFleur and him taking the field goal at the end of the ball game, but earlier he made he decided he was going to take a risk and go for 2,
which was a mistake. And I was yelling at the TV when that happened because it was too early in the game for them to be going for 2. Because and I don't like the 2-point conversion table. My thing is, at what point are we in the game? And what I always look at too, that no one talks about, and maybe I'm just different, Bryan, what I always look at is if you make the extra point or the 2-point conversion, how will it change what you need going forward if the offense kicks a field goal? So for example, if they would have kicked the extra point, they're down 4, which means if Brady gets a field goal, which he ended up doing, then you're only down 7. And you're right there. If you miss the 2-point conversion, now you're going to be down 8, which means you have to bring the 2-point conversion into play. And so I thought that was a mistake because it was still the third quarter. You have Aaron Rodgers, and that ended up biting them as well. I just think horrible situational awareness. But the other thing, and last thing I'll say about it, and then I'll let you do the rest of the talking. If they were going to need a touchdown regardless, even with the field goal, so why would you not go for the touchdown when you're down inside the 12, 13-yard line with Aaron Rodgers? Like, it makes no sense to me why you would kick a field goal when you don't even know if you'll get the ball back, and the chances were not good.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say is I think that the charge of him being a coward at the end is valid, okay? But I think it's because he was aggressive and it blew up in his face. He picked a bad time to do it when he went for 2 earlier in the game. You're right. He was too early. He didn't need to be chasing points the whole time. So he went aggressive there. It bit him in the butt. He pulled himself into a shell at the end of the game, and it bit him in the butt. And you never give Tom Brady the football with 2 minutes to go in the game and think you're going to get it back. The only other thing I'll say is that there had to be in the back of his mind. I'm not trying to make excuses for LaFleur, but I'm trying to figure out what he was thinking. And the only thing that I can figure that could make any sense at all is it's 4th and 8. Everybody in the stadium knows you've got to throw the football, and his offensive line is getting worn out by the Tampa Bay defense. And I don't know if he didn't think that the offensive line could hold him off long enough for Rodgers to do his magic. That's the only plausible explanation that I can come up with for it. Regardless, as I said last week, can I repeat it again today? Devin White is a freaking beast. 15 tackles, 9 of them solo. And the next leading tackler for Tampa Bay had 7. Devin White is a freaking beast, and he's in his 2nd year.
Yeah, and they put a lot of pressure on Rodgers, but again, and I will probably admit I get passionate about it. And,
I think you're absolutely. You're right in everything you say.
LaFleur, it was, to me, is one of the worst decisions I have ever seen in a game of that magnitude with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and you don't think you can get 8 yards. Look, it's your risk reward, because again, if you kick the field goal, you still need a touchdown, and now you have to somehow get the ball back from Tom Brady. And the other thing too, Bryan, if let's say they go for it and they didn't get it, Tampa Bay's still backed up inside their own 10-yard line and are probably going to be more conservative, and you're going to get a good chance that they're going to end up punting the ball back. So I just think he did not think it through. And Aaron Rodgers obviously was not happy with the decision either. He basically threw LaFleur under the bus and said that wasn't his decision, and even said that he didn't know what his future was, which led to a whole bunch of people speculating, could he get traded? I don't think the Packers would do that.
No.
But Aaron was obviously not happy. So, and before we go on to the next game, it does beg the question, where do you put Rodgers historically? You look at how many years he's played now, and again, it's a crazy stat, but Tom Brady has won as many NFC championships now as Aaron Rodgers. He's 0-4 in his last 4 NFC title games.
I put him in the same category I do with Drew Brees, with Peyton Manning. Well, actually, Manning's got 2.
Manning went to 4 Super Bowls, though.
But Manning basically was the recipient of great defense. He was carried to that second Super Bowl championship. I think he's going to go down as one of the all-time greats, but unfortunately, he was in the wrong era. Now I can't say that because they didn't play the Patriots most of the time when they lost those ball games. It was just always who the hot team in the NFC was, and Rodgers just didn't get it done other than that one time.
But thinking about that, isn't this more of a strike against him because he didn't have to play Peyton and Brady or Roethlisberger?
He didn't have a rival. He didn't have a Martina Navratilova, Chris Everett, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier kind of a rival like Brady and Manning were. You know, he didn't have that kind of rival. I guess Breeze was about as close as that could be, and I don't think they met in the championship game more than
no, they never did.
And the last time they met in the championship game, Brett Favre was still the quarterback, I believe. I can't remember, but he's a great quarterback. For whatever reason, they just don't get it done when it's time to get into the Super Bowl, and he's gonna leave with a very incomplete resume because of that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, last year's Tampa Bay team was 7-9. This year's Tampa Bay team won 7 in a row on the road.
Yeah.
Won 3 playoff games on the road to get to the Super Bowl, and the biggest difference between this team and last year's team is Jameis Winston to Tom Brady with a little help from Leonard Fournette. And then Devin White is a freaking beast.
And it just shows you why the quarterback position is the most important position in all of sports. Because if you get someone in that seat with almost an entirely same supporting cast, you can go from a losing record to a Super Bowl.
Hence,
all it takes is one guy, because a good quarterback all of a sudden takes pressure off the defense. They're not on the field all the time. And then the defense starts picking up the offense when they're turning the ball over. So pretty remarkable. I don't know how many people picked the Bucs to go to the Super Bowl this year in year 1 with Brady. I thought they'd be a playoff team, but and you had mentioned the 7 straight playoff wins. I mean, they won all 3 playoff games on the road.
That's what I mean.
I know we don't have normal crowds, but they still won 3 games on the road. And now they're the first team to ever get to host a Super Bowl that they're playing in their own stadium.
It's pretty remarkable story all the way around. Bruce Arians shows what a coach he is, and they've got a heck of a football team all the way around. They've got a running game. Fournette seems like he's revived. He's suddenly got new legs again, and
that touchdown run that he had was amazing.
That looked like what he looked like at LSU. That's what I expected to see from him for 5 years, and we just haven't seen a lot of it. But we saw it yesterday, and man, what a monster he is. All right, so we talk about the importance of quarterbacks, and then we go to the AFC Championship game, and the Chiefs have been irrelevant for 40 years until the coming of Patrick Mahomes 3 years ago, and now they're going to their second straight Super Bowl. They're playing their third straight AFC Championship game. I mean, is it possible he could literally match or surpass what Tom Brady's done?
It's possible. And I was thinking about this last night. They're an offside call away from going back to their third straight Super Bowl, possibly winning their third straight Super Bowl. Because remember 2 years ago when Brady beat them in Arrowhead, they had the game clinching interception, but Frank Clark had jumped over the line and jumped back, and it cost them. So they just seem so much better than everyone. I don't ever remember a team ever that can spot leads to other teams. And it's like, so what? Like, did anyone, when Buffalo went up 9-0, did anyone honestly think man, the Chiefs are in trouble. No, you basically were waiting for them to go on a 3-touchdown, boom, boom, boom. They're, and again, I had mentioned this, I think last week, the week before. The other thing that makes them so good, besides, and Mahomes is obviously the best quarterback in the league, but their defense to me has improved so much in these 2 years with Spagnuolo as defensive coordinator. They've been so good in the playoffs. And the reality too, Brian, is you could argue right now, that the Chiefs have the best quarterback, the best offensive mind in Andy Reid, the best tight end for sure. And you could argue Tyreek Hill is the best receiver. You could argue they have the best in all 4 of those things. And they're all still relatively young. Andy Reid, I bet Mahomes makes Andy Reid feel like he's 20 years younger. Why would you retire if you have this guy? So, I mean, look, and that's the thing. The challenge for these other AFC teams is they've got to find a way. And that's why I thought the Bills failed miserably yesterday as well, in that they were kicking field goal. They on 2 times on like a 4th and 3, they kicked the field goal. You cannot beat the Chiefs kicking field goals. To me, if you're playing the Chiefs, you have to assume that we have to score at minimum 34 points, at minimum. That has to be your plan going in. Everything has to revolve around, we have to score that many points. And, the Chiefs just have I mean, it's remarkable. And I don't know how this is going to stop, because Josh Allen showed me yesterday he's still not even close to the level of a Patrick Mahomes. So still a good young player, had a great year, but show me the team that's going to stop him right now. I can't tell you that.
You're kind of wound up.
We only had 2 games to talk about, so.
I think this. I think that the Buffalo Bills still they're ascending, and I think that this is the first taste of deep playoff run for the Bills, and they're learning what it takes to win these kind of games. They were as hot as anybody coming in when they came into that game yesterday. But again, that field was a home field advantage last night. First of all, that was a big crowd and it was loud. I don't know how many they actually put in there.
I know they still say 17,000, and I'm like,
well, God bless them. They're a loud bunch. Okay. Yeah. I'm not saying that was a factor in the ball game, but I mean, Kansas City was a better football team. Their defense is better. I love what Buffalo's putting together, and I think Josh Allen's just going to get better and better and better. Is that going to be the rivalry? Is that going to be the next Brady Manning? Is that going to be, Mahomes and Josh Allen battling it out now for the next 15 years? I think it's very possible, because boy, they're both so young, and they're playing great football for the most part.
Yeah, I'm not ready to put Josh Allen in that group yet.
Well, no.
If he does it another year, but the last 2 weeks, I guess my concerning thing with Josh was, and you're right. I mean, look, but this was not his first playoff. But his last 2 games, I mean, they only scored 1 offensive touchdown against the Ravens. I mean, they won because of a pick 6. And he was not good against the Chiefs. So he's not on the level, because even in Patrick's first playoff game, Patrick was amazing. So I guess my point more was, we keep wanting to try to find, okay, who's right there with Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think there is. I don't think there's
I didn't say that.
No, and I wasn't saying you were, but I was saying that's why that was my take more about Allen, was I just don't think he's still even, because I was thinking maybe Allen is the closest thing getting up there, because the other thing about Allen, and we saw him do it a couple times, he's big and he can run and he's fast. He reminds me a lot of John Elway growing up, just a great athlete. But his accuracy had been a problem his first 2 years, and it came back the last couple weeks. But the Chiefs, you asked, could this go on could he match Brady? He could, because that's the thing with Brady. At least Brady, to stop him, had a Peyton Manning. And Manning beat Brady. Manning went 3-1 against Brady in AFC Championship games. Patrick doesn't have anybody right now that I would say is going to be that guy. Maybe it'll be Josh Allen. There's some other good young Will Lamar Jackson ever be that guy? I don't know. I'm still not sold on him totally. But right now it's Patrick Mahomes' world.
Oh, listen, and I'm thrilled for the kid. You know, East Texas just dances every time Patrick Mahomes does what he does. So I think it's fantastic, and what he's doing at the quarterback position is just it's just unheard of. You know, the athleticism, the playmaking ability, the accuracy, the arm strength. I mean, he's got the whole package, and he's shown he can win in the clutch. He's shown he can come from behind. He never he shows he can play hurt. You know, I mean, he plays with a bad foot last night. You wouldn't even know it. But I watched him do that in high school. So
One of
it's
the
phenomenal what he's been able to do.
one of the more impressive plays in that game was, he has a bad turf toe,
Hmm.
and you can tell he's not 100% when he's walking. He looks like he's hurting, and the pass rush came, and the Buffalo defender had him, and he was strong enough, even with the foot injury, to step up with the guy clinging to him, and like threw sidearm across for a wide open receiver. I mean, for an open receiver that cut back, like you cannot. I had said before, having Patrick Mahomes is like having a cheat code, because you can call the perfect defense and he can still make you look bad.
Yeah,
And he's still a baby.
he's 25, you know, or
So,
going on 25. So it's ridiculous. I mean, unbelievable. Um, so one other thing I wanted to get to, and then if we have some time, we can hit some other things real quick. But it was 25 years ago this weekend that the Dallas Cowboys, our Dallas Cowboys, not I know not yours, but our Dallas Cowboys here in East Texas appeared in an NFC Championship game. They are one of three teams that have not made it into a championship game since then. The other two are a steaming pile of excrement: Washington and Detroit. Is that unbelievable or what? And yet, I was reading David Moore's column in the Dallas Morning News yesterday, and in that time, I think only the Saints, Seattle, maybe one other team has won more ball games in 25 years than the Cowboys. They've not been horrendous all those years. A couple of years they were 13-3, and just 4 playoff wins in the last 25 years. And Tom Brady's going to 10 Super Bowls.
God, he's got more Super Bowl appearances than they have. That, that's it's totally crazy to think about. And especially because, like you said, when you look at all the other teams in the NFC, and there's some bad franchises, and all of them have been to an NFC title game except for the Lions and Washington. And the Lions, I mean, are about as bad as it gets. So,
but every year Jerry says, "Man, this is gonna be the year. We're right on the verge."
now they have had some really good teams. The 13-3 team that got beat by Eli, and then the Giants went on, I believe, to win the Super Bowl that year, didn't they? The Des caught it year. I know a lot of Cowboys fans will say we would have been there. But yeah, just crazy that the luck the franchise has had. It's truly hard to believe that quote unquote America's team hasn't been back to a top. Because I remember, Bryan, when I was, that was my middle school, high school years when the Cowboys were just the dominant. And you never, if someone would have told me back then they wouldn't be back for 25 years, I would have said you were nuts. So it's just crazy to think about.
And then let me throw one other thing at you, just to really, stick it in the hearts of anybody that ever followed the Cowboys and had any affection for them at all. No championship appearances in 25 years. They're worth $5.5 billion. They are number one by a long margin, the most valuable franchise in professional sports. And yet they win nothing. Year after year, nothing.
I will say, I do think Dak is going to be the guy as long as they keep him. I think Dak will be the guy that ends the championship drought. I think they will at least get back to an NFC championship game with Dak Prescott. So, and I
We've
would,
got you on video.
you've got me on video. As long as Dak stays the quarterback of the Cowboys, I believe he will eventually. I don't know if it'll be next year, but I believe he will, because if you have a good quarterback, the odds are you're going to get there at least once at some point. You just have to.
Or you're going to give them away like the Texans are going to have to do with Deshaun Watson. And Matthew Stafford has demanded a trade, and the Lions say, "Yeah, we're going to go ahead and give it to you," because they don't want to pay the salary cap hit. They're not winning with him anyway.
We may
So
see. I was reading this morning. We may see. I think Adam Schefter had predicted it'll be an unprecedented offseason for quarterback moving. Like we will have. He predicted there could be 18 teams with a different starting quarterback, which is just nuts. That's over 50% of the league that could have a different quarterback opening day next year.
and a lot of those teams had all pro quarterbacks. When you
Yeah,
start talking about Watson and Stafford and people of that stature, to think that as hard as it is to find franchise quarterbacks, that these two teams are going to give theirs away. That's incredible.
yeah.
Now
I still have a hard time believing Houston will trade Deshaun Watson.
he may
That's
not
just
he may not give them any choice. If you were a betting man right now, where do you think Stafford ends up, and where do you think Watson ends up if he leaves Houston? Which, depending, a lot of that's going to ride on whether they hire a head coach he's into or not.
I think with Philip Rivers retiring, Indy makes sense, a lot of sense for Stafford. I hope Stafford would possibly go to Denver, my team. And I think it makes a lot of sense because they have basically every piece they need except the quarterback. And I think with Stafford, they become a playoff team immediately. I think I've even heard people say in San Francisco, the problem is going to be compensation, what you can give, because Detroit's not going to give them away. So it's going to come down to compensation. And then Deshaun Watson, I guess, just because of compensation, the Jets and the Dolphins could both give Houston a lot of high picks. And if you're Houston and you have to get rid of them, I think that makes the most sense. I mean, if you're Houston, you could not only get multiple first-round picks back, you could get a Sam Darnold or a Tua to at least be another quarterback to hold you over until you figure out for sure what you want to do. So I think they make the most sense, but I still, man, to trade away Deshaun Watson would be pretty. And I know, like you mentioned, he may not give him a choice, but sometimes I wonder, do I just call this bluff and say, are you just going to quit and retire? Because, we don't want to lose you. So we'll see.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Okay, real quick, just last things. Jeremy Pruitt gets fired at Tennessee. Then Tennessee actually makes a wise hire in hiring Danny White as their athletic director. Danny White was the guy that put UCF on the map, Central Florida, and then, claimed they won the national championship after they beat Auburn in a bowl game and finished the year undefeated. But already, though, the same Tennessee fan base, the word got out yesterday that one of the people that Danny White's looking at is PJ Fleck. And the Vols fans started going crazy against it, negative.
Against it? He's a good coach.
They are against everybody. The only person that will put a smile on their face will be Nick Saban, and he ain't coming. Okay, it's insane. Those people are insane. They're mountain people and they're nuts. I know. I lived up there.
You have experience.
Apologies to all mountain people, but that's crazy.
Yeah, if that's, I had not heard that. You're the first I've heard that from. I think that would be a really good hire. I like Fleck a lot. I even thought he was someone that Michigan should go after.
Yeah.
If they were going to get rid of Harbaugh, which looks like that's not happening. But yeah, I think you could do a lot worse than him.
Hey, I'm going to tell you what, if I was going to go out and get a head football coach right now, I would do anything in my power to hire Matt Campbell. Guy from Iowa State to do what he's doing at Iowa State, if he can do it at Iowa State, he can do it at Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I'll just remind people that Johnny Majors coached at Iowa State before he went to Tennessee and turned it around. So, and
The
he
only
went to
thing,
Pittsburgh.
you'd have a much tougher schedule at Tennessee than he
No
did at
doubt.
Iowa State. So that would be the thing, like in terms of what are people expecting in terms of wins.
Well,
It would take a little longer for him to build that up, but I do agree. I think he could build it up into a very good program.
what do people expect and what do Vols fans expect? And what Vols fans expect and what's realistic are two totally different things. They're expecting to be on par with Alabama. They need to be expecting to win 9 games a year and take that as being a really good season.
Yeah.
It's just you gotta understand your limitations. You gotta have a realistic view of who you are. Last thing, COVID. Ryan, it's 2021, man, and it feels like 2020. It's still beating down all of sports right now. Now we see Michigan's going to shut down their entire athletic program for 2 weeks, trying to get a grip on this thing. Shaka Smart, the Texas basketball coach, was diagnosed with COVID today. I mean, is there any chance we're not going to see an NCAA tournament this year?
I would say no because of the money. Somebody was saying, it was a really good point, saying that a lot of schools the athletic programs will not be able to survive if we don't have another NCAA tournament this year. So I think there will be a tournament. I think the issue is going to be, there's going to be teams that aren't going to be able to be in it because of COVID. I mean, right now there are at least 20 teams, I think, that are shut down right now. My alma mater, Wichita State, I follow college basketball more than probably most people. Within the American Athletic Conference, there's like 5 different teams in the same league shut down. My alma mater has had 4 of their last like 6 or 7 conference games not played because the other school has had a case. So you're seeing it in all these leagues, and there comes a point you're not going to be able to make up all these games, and it's not getting better. Like each week we're seeing more and more games. Like tonight there's only 14 games nationally because so many have been canceled. So I don't know. I just don't think that they can afford. They're going to do everything in their power to make sure it happens because, I mean, again, the money from that tournament is such a big deal that it would be devastating, I think, to college athletics in general if it doesn't happen. So I don't think it'll get stopped, but I think there's going to be a lot of teams that end up not being able to go because of COVID.
And we're already seeing a lot of blue blood teams that are, just because of the lack of continuity with practice and games getting canceled and things like that. You're seeing Kentucky in the ditch. You're seeing Duke in the ditch. You're seeing teams that normally run very smoothly. And you got to believe a lot of that is COVID, just because of the starts and stops of the season and not being able to practice on a consistent basis. There's no regimentation. That's what athletes love, is routine. And there's no such thing as routine in this world that we live in right now. So you're right, though. I agree with you. They're going to have a tournament because come hell or high water, they have got to have a tournament, because if they don't, this could be the end of college sports as we know it from a
I don't
scholarship
think
standpoint.
people, and look, that's not hyperbole. Like, I don't think people understand there could be, I mean, massive programs that go under and that they count on this money. I mean, all these smaller mid-major conferences, these conferences count on the money that their team, their NCAA tournament qualifier gets. That goes to the league. That doesn't go to the school. So, it's a massive thing. And we already lost it last year. It's one thing to lose it one year. It's another to have 2 consecutive years without that. I just hope that I hope it doesn't come to that, because it would be devastating. And they've had the time to prepare too. They know the setup. They're having everything in Indiana. As opposed to thinking about last March, it was kind of like, really, if you remember, Bryan, I remember because we were supposed to go on a trip to go see a tournament. Everything kind of went nuts in the United States the week of conference tournaments. So the NCAA didn't have time to react and respond and figure out what they were going to do. They've had more time to do it. So I think they'll do whatever they have to do to make it happen.
Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Excited. it should be an exciting Super Bowl. Thinking about the greatest of all time against the guy that looks like he could be the greatest of all time. So we've got 2 weeks to wait on that and think about that. But I don't know what we're gonna do without football, though. I'm kind of not having football next weekend is gonna be sad, and then once the Super Bowl is over, we ain't got anything because
I'm just
I
great.
haven't been able to get into basketball much this year.
I haven't watched any basketball. Don't care about basketball. I watched LSU Kentucky and regretted it Saturday. So that's about all I've watched because I wanted to get through football season. But once we get through football season, then I guess I'll start paying attention. But it's I've loved having a football season, as
Yeah.
goofy as it's been, and it's frustrating from an area standpoint with Cowboys and the Texans being bad. That's been frustrating, but it's been a fascinating year just to see the teams trying to get through this, playing in empty stadiums, doing all this goofy stuff that you never thought. You feel like you're living in the apocalypse right now. But I'm just
Hats off to the NFL. If I had told you in August that every single NFL game would be played through the Super Bowl, I mean, that would have been a big prediction. Like, I don't think a lot of people would have believed that could happen. And the fact that we've seen every game, the Super Bowl is scheduled for 2 weeks. They're not letting the teams come to Tampa until 2 days before. Tampa will already be there, but the Chiefs aren't going to go until I think the day before even. So they did it, and hats off to all the players and the families who had to sacrifice, and the teams in the NFL for making it work.
Yeah. Well, we'll spend some more time next time talking about the Super Bowl specifically and how we see it matching up and who we think might win. But in the meantime, appreciate you being on as always, and want to thank everybody for watching, all 5 of you. We really appreciate your support. Uh, it means a great deal to us. So be sure to watch. We drop on Tuesday mornings. Be sure and watch it if you want to leave comments, if you want to share with your friends. We're more than happy for you to share. Sharing is a good thing. Be nice to each other. Wear your mask. Take care of yourself. And Ryan, we'll see you later on.
See you, brother.
All right.